Yeshua Meir, our producer, asked me to talk about breslov. So, since we're having Sichas Chulin Shel Talmidei Chachamim, so we could talk on any subject.
And if any of our listeners have what to say, they can send in their requests.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a breslover, and I don't know so good breslov from inside, but I can talk as an observer from the outside. What I observed and what I saw in my years. Now, I first found out there was such thing as breslov, I think, maybe around the year 70. And there was a young bacher that came to learn in Kamenetz, and his name was, Sar Shalom Merzel. He came to learn in Kamenetz, and they said he learned before in a yeshiva called Mitzuyonim. It was from a Talmud of the breslov of Chaim Aaron Turchin, and he was thrown out of there because he became a breslover. That's when I heard there was such a thing as breslov. And in the same time, there was a bacher in Kamenetz, Mordechai Turitz. He also became a breslover, and he left Ponevezh. He was a good bacher. And they came to learn in Kamenetz. At the same time, this is in B'derech Agav, I heard there was, from Sar Shalom, I heard there was such thing as a savriner, that he was against breslov. In fact, I don't know if anybody ever heard of this savriner. Only in connection to breslov, that he was a big misnaga to breslov. Until recently, they opened up a shtibo in Har Nof.
They opened up a bomb shelter.
Yeah. Now, at the time I didn't know, I just knew there was a sefer lekuti moharan. That's all I heard about it. And that there was a caver in Uman that nobody could get to because it was still under communist, under the communist government at the time. And they said Sar Shalom tried to get there. He said he did get there, and he was there in Rosh Hashanah. Anyway, what I've seen now, also in later years, I went to the Mir and I saw Tzvi Cheshin, a Rabbi Gon Tzvi Cheshin, which is also a breslover.
Tonight's the yahrzeit of his father, Rabbi Cheshin.
Oh, wow. Which I would call him an authentic breslover, as opposed to the Balei Tshuva, which almost took over, and that's all the world knows of breslov, is the Balei Tshuva and the atmosphere they created around it. Maybe even messed up the name of breslov. And he's one of the best in the Mir, or the best in the Mir. Everybody talks learning to him. Mamish Hagon knows him. And I heard that he's still there till today. And everybody talks in learning to him. And people stand in line maybe even to talk in learning to him. That's the little bit that I know about breslov. Also, I met a Jew that his name is Yudah Leib Frank, Zecher Tzadik Levrocha. Very, very fine person, very nice person, very friendly person. They said he's a Talmud Chacham, also they said here.
11:30.
From everything I observed in breslov, I would divide it into 3 parts, and maybe 4. The first part is the sefer lekuti moharan. The second part is the hizak that there's, the divrei hizak there's in breslov. And the third part is the belief, what's called these kashrus to the Rebbe. That itself you could divide in 2 parts, believing in the Rebbe, and we'll talk about what that means, And then there's worshiping the Rebbe, which is something dangerous. And the difference between the two is very, very fine. It takes the people that can split hairs to know the difference, but I'm one of those that know how to do that. So we'll start from the first. The first part that there is the sefer of the Rebbe, which is lekuti, which lechura, that's the breslov itself, that's the Torah of the Rebbe's thinking. Now I would say, and I did learn a few pieces in the sefer lekuti with somebody, and that person was definitely not teaching me it, not at all. Now, I learned it like you learn a piece of Gemara, like a Rav Tzvi Cheshen learns it in the same way. And I went to his shiur maybe twice or three times. He says a shiur on Monday in Breslov, I think from 2 o'clock. And he says it mamish like you learn a Gemara. And he's probably the best shiur there is in lekuti moharan, but I imagine there are others also. Few others. The sefer lekuti moharan is a sefer only for intellectual people, not for simple people. Definitely not at all. The sefer lekuti moharan is very, very brilliant.
Well, that's your opinion.
So what should I say, your opinion? Whose opinion should I say? It's definitely my opinion, based on the few pieces I saw of the sefer. Why am I saying this? You could take any 3 lines in the whole sefer and start asking, what does it mean? What's the connection? And you'll have to think a lot in order to understand it. First of all, just to be able to hold, how do you say, to hold kop, you say in Yiddish, to follow the connections. If you could take any Torah, I mean especially the long Torahs in the lekuti moharan, and make a chain, just words, this connected to this, and this to this, and this to this, and this to this, which brings this back to this, and Mele comes out this. It's cheshbonos on top of cheshbonos on top of cheshbonos. Now every link,
how much like the Sipur Maisius?
Right. Every link between one thing and the other, which most of it is that, needs hesber, needs explaining, and it doesn't come easily. I know from my own experience that I once learned with somebody, lekuti moharan, he thinks he's a real Breslover. He's been around a long time. And I stopped every few lines, so how are we going to understand this connection? Nish ne'elam dom. He just kept quiet. I don't know if he even knew that you're supposed to do that. Now, that just comes to prove that there's another aspect in Breslov besides the Rebbe's sefer. If somebody's been around so long and he couldn't even answer when he was asked, how do you explain things? And he still considers himself a Breslover, it must be that there's something else besides the Rebbe's sefer. Now, just open it up any place you want. Here. Look where, I didn't prepare this. He says like this. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, it's in Brachos also, beginning of Brachos, Hizaru bezaken sheshachach talmudo machmas sons, give him covered, even though he forgot his learning. So he said you should give him covered. שהידי הכובד יספרתו ממנו השיקחה ויסגל הנפש הנזיכרון התורה. This is which Torah Yilamed Zion in the first chit. Could you explain me what's the connection? Through COVID it'll be misbatel the shikha. I mean that's not how you learn past is the Gemara. The Gemara says you should give him COVID even though he's a zaken sheshachach talmudu. His luchos v'shivri luchos menachim moharan. So you have to give COVID anyway because he was once a talmud chacham. He says no. COVID brings back zikaron. Why? What's the connection? How do you understand? You have to think and think and think. Or maybe have tremendous bekiyas from others, farm and other places, in order to explain it. But everything. I remember from that time we learned that Torah here, Lamed Hey, and I still remember it, in Lamed Hey, Os Vov, in the end of those, he says, that hizak ani sefer mimerchak tovilach. She brings them the lachmo from merchak. So he says because that means merchak tovilachma means to bring down a new understanding, a seichel chodosh in Torah. Because seichel nikra rochuk, k'mo shekosav amatiyach koma v'hirachok. I said I'll become smart, Shlomo Amel says, and Chochmah is yet rochuk from me. See that Chochmah is called rochuk, and that's mimerchak tovilachma. That's merchak is the Chochmah itself. You understand such a thing? It says Amatich koma v'irachok. Rochuk means I don't have the Chochmah. So what's he saying that the Chochmah is called rochuk? How do you understand it? It's very, very difficult. I think, mamish, every line. Adrabah, this is very, very stimulating, the sefer. I feel that the sefer lekuti moharan is very stimulating because it's not just simple reading. Every line you have to think about, you have to go into it. Now, so because of that, on that I base my opinion that it's a sefer for intellectuals and not for simple people. I don't see what could simple people do with such a sefer. Just like somebody would say,
just like the Chida says, the Girsa alone of Zohar is Matayra Nefesh. I think the Breslovers hold that just Girsa of lekuti moharan is Matayra Nefesh.
Right. What does that mean? That means those that don't do what it was made for, they just do Girsa. So it's still, even so, it's still Matayra than ever. It wasn't made for Girsa. It was made for learning. But yeah, you can do the lowest of the lowest thing with it, which is called Girsa, and it can still be Matayra than ever. But I'm pretty sure it's not why the Rebbe made this sefer in order to do Girsa on it. He made the sefer to learn it. But then they gave a kula for the weak brains, so they said they could do Girsa, just like Shimon Bar Yochai didn't make the Zohar for doing Girsa and being Matayra than Nefesh. But after he made it, there's so much Kedusha there that you can be Matayra than Nefesh. So the same thing you're saying on the lekuti moharan. But it definitely was made for intellectuals and not anything less. And I can't see, it wasn't said for simple people. Nah. And they said on the Bob Tanya or one of the later Rebbes that there were some Hasidim, the simple people, they used to come home and they would say over the pasuk that the Rebbe said the Maimar on. They just say over the pasuk, and that was their Hasidus. That was their called learning Hasidus that they said over the pasuk that the Rebbe said the Maimar on. The same thing as over here. Definitely anybody that's not intellectual can't understand it, that's for sure. Now, that's the first chelik of breslov. The second chelik of breslov is the hizak. Now, hizak, the lekuti moharan itself, there's very little hizak. Most of it is for the intellectuals. But there's a famous Torah that's called Azamra, which is Reish Pei Beis, isn't it? And the end of the first chelik.
Okay, we'll take a break now, Rav Caplan.